Hello, fellow investor. I want to welcome you to this channel. In this video, we look at the earnings expectations for AT&T. AT&T is reporting second quarter earnings on Wednesday, July 23rd, before the market opens. We'll cover several topics to see how AT&T is trading going into the earnings and help set expectations moving forward. We will review the current price chart and trend charts, along with some key valuation, growth, and profitability metrics from Seeking Alpha and Fast Graphs. I will also provide an update on my AT&T portfolio holdings and performance. Let's get started. I've held AT&T since December of 2020. Making a total of 24 trades since that time. I have a realized return of around $2,800, an unrealized return of about $9,800. I've received $10,838.50 in dividends. I've lost some money trading options. That's subtracted about 5% away from my total return. My total return is around $22,514.56 for a total return of 31.1% or 13.2% annualized. For the 24 trades, 16 of those have been winning trades, 8 have been losing trades. The total gains and the total losses, the trades give me a 67% win rate, and the gain-loss ratio is $2.79 to 1. So basically, for every $1 that I've lost, I've made $2.79. In the previous quarter, AT&T reported revenue of $30.63 billion. Beating revenue estimates by $264.01 million. AT&T reported earnings of 51 cents per share, in line with estimates. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $30.48 billion, with earnings per share of 53 cents. Over the last 90 days, 3 analysts raised estimates and 9 analysts lowered estimates. AT&T meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 100% of the time. AT&T is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 5.1%. This is the AT&T one-year daily price chart. We can see that in the October time frame of 2024, after earnings, they had a nice bump up. Likewise, in January 27th, they had a nice gap up. And then in April, they had a slight increase, and then decreasing prices a week and 2 weeks later. AT&T is up over 40% over the last year. We are starting to see decreased pricing as we move into the earnings. The RSI is below the midpoint, so it's showing weakness in the relative strength indicator. PPO is also below the midpoint, under 0, and the shorter term averages has crossed over the longer term averages, so that momentum is showing some weakness as we move into the earnings. AT&T is currently underperforming the SPY on relative strength and momentum. We do see strong accumulation over the last year, but it has flattened out a bit over the last couple of months. We look at the money flow. It's been negative since the beginning of this month. It has turned positive, but it's not showing enough strength yet to indicate a bullish signal here. When we look at AT&T compared to the S&P 500, we can see that it has outperformed the S&P 500 by 29%. It is outperforming the communication sector by 17.22%. It is outperforming the fixed line communications industry by 4.88%. And the fixed line industry is outperforming the SPX or the S&P 500 by 23.65%. So it's a strong performance in a strongly performing industry and sector. AT&T overall is showing some weakness as it moves into the earnings. If we turn our attention to the weekly 5-year trend chart, we can see that in the long term, it is outperforming its long-term averages since about the beginning of 2024. It's the same for the medium-term averages, where it's been outperforming since October of 2023. And then in the short term, it has turned negative. I am seeing some improvement over this past week, but in the short term, it is showing some weakness. When we look at the valuation growth and profitability metrics for AT&T using Seeking Alpha, we can see that T has a forward PE of 13.01 times compared to the sector at 13.71 times, so slightly undervalued compared to the sector. The expected EPS growth rate is minus 2.47% for T compared to the sector at 11.04%. And the expected revenue growth is 0.94% for T compared to the sector at 3.39%. And then finally, we look at profitability. We can see the net margin for T is 9.64% compared to the sector at 4.01%. This is the AT&T chart in fast graphs. We can see over this 13-year period that AT&T has a blended PE of 12.61 times, an EPS yield of 7.93. They pay a dividend with a yield of 4.12%. Over this 13-year period, they have had an adjusted operating earnings growth rate of 2.18%. FastGraphs calculates their fair value ratio at 12.87 times, and their normal PE is 10.16 times. We can see that AT&T has traded at fair value, the yellow or gold line, for the 2015, 16, and 17 time frame. And then since that point, it's traded even under its normal PE. Then during the pandemic, it took a pretty severe drop and continued dropping all the way through 2022 when it finally resumed its uptrend and got above its normal PE back to its fair value. We can also see for 2022 they had 0% EPS growth. Then they were negative for 3 years, and analysts are expecting them to resume EPS growth in 2026 and 2027. That wraps up my review of AT&T as we await the company earnings report. Let me know in the comments what you think about this company, and let me know if you hold a position in AT&T. If you find these earnings previews helpful, I would appreciate you subscribing to the channel so you are alerted to future videos as they get posted. I would also be grateful if you like the video to help support this channel. I wish you the best in your investment journey, and remember to trade well.